Coach Little here to talk a little cross country, sort of at the mid-season point. Realized that I haven't done a cross country update since the preseason, so thought this was a good opportunity. Probably should have done it last weekend on the weekend that we had off, but nevertheless, good time just to talk about how the season's progressing and looking forward. We actually ran today, or maybe yesterday. I'm not sure if this video will post Saturday night or Sunday, but it was our sixth meet of the season. Hard to believe. We've got 9 regular season meets scheduled, so we're almost through the regular season schedule. So 3 more regular season meets plus region, and then possibly the state meet. So we'll talk a little bit about our progress. As a team, which has grown as the weeks have went by from where we started out in July, and that's a good thing, and we'll touch on that in a minute. The first thing I wanted to talk about is running more consistently in the 17s. We've got a couple guys that have been able to do that. I was looking back last year, we ran in the 17s 6 times. It may have been not necessarily 6 guys, but at some point, we had 6 times recorded in the high 17s, 1748 and above. The stat that stood out to me is that, and I'm not sure if I said 6 or 7. We ran 7 times in the 17s, but 6 of those 7 times were all at Mason County. So I don't know exactly what that says. Mason County, I don't think, is a short course, so that's not it. I think part of it is that we're very at least people like Grayson and Bryant, who have ran for several years, are familiar with Mason County, maybe comfortable with Mason County. They know how to pace at Mason County. But nevertheless, that's where we saw most of our good times come from. And we've seen that over the years. Over the years, most of our better times, regardless of who it is and what the time is, our team has ran better times at Mason County. And I think part of that is because we've raced there so much. So part of the growth that we need to see is that we're not only running our best times at Mason County, because your elite runners and even your really good runners aren't just going to run really good at one course. Now, all courses are different. There are some faster courses. There are slower courses. It depends on how the course is made up. It depends on turns, hills. It depends on weather conditions, how short the grass is. All of those things make a difference as to how fast you might run on a course. But what I like that I've seen through 6 meets is we've ran in the 17s 6 times so far, but those have been at different courses. We've ran Bryant and Grayson have ran in the 17s at Mason County. They've also ran in the 17s at Boyd County, and they ran in the 17s today at Masterson Station Park. So I think seeing them running well on multiple courses and running more consistently in those mid-17s is a good sign and a sign of their progress. The other thing that was, talking about progress is progress as a team, where about a month ago now we added 3 guys to our team. So, when we started the season in July, we only had 4 guys, and that allowed us to only focus on individual goals. Now with 7 guys, we can sort of refocus. We still have individual goals, obviously, in this sport, but you have team goals as well. And really, they work together. The faster somebody runs, the more it helps their team. So, by adding those runners, it allowed us to create some team goals. Now, I know most people who have followed the program might say, well, obviously you want to repeat as region champions. And yeah, we certainly do want to repeat as region champions. That is much easier said than done. Obviously, we lost a couple of really important pieces to our team to graduation last year. And, like I said, we had picked up some guys, but there are other teams in the region that have improved as well. So certainly you want to win a regional title. And it's not that that's out of the question, but it is possible. But our biggest goal with wanting to add runners is first and foremost to qualify for the state meet. We've qualified three times in our history as a team, and we're coming off back-to-back years qualifying, so we want to do that. And just as a reminder, in cross country, there's not a certain number of teams that qualify. It depends on how many full teams enter the regional meet. So if I think 6 teams enter the regional meet, then it might be 3 teams that will go to the state meet. And obviously, the more teams that enter, the more teams that go. Typically in Region 5A, we have anywhere from 10 to 12 teams that enter the regional meet. And of course, a full team is considered 5 runners. So, typically 5 to 6 teams qualify for the state meet. So I feel really good about that possibility. If we continue to progress, with our new runners, if we keep everyone healthy, if we keep our 7 guys intact, and all healthy to run, then I feel really good about our chances to qualify for the state meet again. So that's the biggest goal. And then obviously from there, you want to do well. You would like to get a region trophy and get a championship or a runner-up, and that is, like I said, a possibility. But the big goal there is for us to have our opportunity to get back to the state meet, and I feel like we're putting ourselves in a good position to do that. I want to talk about our lone female for a minute, because most of this has been focused on the boys, and a lot of that's just because there are more of them. But Braley, who started the season out training with us, actually had to step away for a while, and then wasn't sure if she was going to make it back or not, but she did. She missed the first few meets, but came back and joined us at Round County. Was her first meet, so about our 3rd meet in, I think. So she has progressed each meet, and she ran another season best today at 22:27, and I was impressed with that because she's had a thigh injury actually now for a couple weeks, but really didn't disclose that till this week. So I'd actually limited her mileage significantly since Monday. One day she didn't run at all. Another day I only had her run a half a mile because I thought rest was seemed to be the best remedy for that. But she indicated that she wanted to still run today, so I allowed her to do that. And like I said, she did well. I think she was, like I said, 22:27, which is her season best thus far. Of course, Braley's goal is to qualify for the state meet as an individual, as she has done the last few years. And looking at the where the standings are right now, she is in that mix. It will be some work for her to do that. It's probably not a lock by any means, as most things aren't in sports. But the point is that she's putting her in a position to get one of those 5 spots that are available. If you're not on a qualifying team, the next 5 individuals can qualify for the state meet. And so as we again approach the postseason, that is our goal with Braley. There are some things that athletes have to do that it's not all about coming to practice and working hard. That's certainly an important aspect to it. But I've focused a lot on, I used to call them the little things. Now I've kind of changed the phrase to keys to improvement, because they are little things, but they can add up to be really valuable pieces to help an athlete succeed. So the first is make sure they're getting enough water. At least 90 ounces of water a day for these high school kids is really important. Clean, healthy eating. I know that that's difficult for a teenager, to limit things like your sugar intake and to limit your greasy foods and things like that. But the bottom line is, if you want to be really good and if you want to maximize your ability and meet your potential, it's just something that you've got to do. Like I said, you can run well and not do that, but if you want to be really good, I think that's really important for most athletes. I mean, everyone's body's different. And that may mean making sacrifices, cutting back on those snacks and those sweets, packing your lunch. There are some meals that just at school that aren't, good for a runner to have. And sometimes our runners feel the effects of that when they've had a lunch and then have to come to practice later that day, and it doesn't sit well. So the clean, healthy eating is really important. Sleep and rest is another really important key. And we've looked at a book that says that it tells athletes, depending on what time they get up, what time should they go to bed. And it actually kind of breaks it down to where mediocre sleep, poor sleep, championship level sleep. And, these guys being teenagers and their bodies are growing, they need at minimum of 8 hours of sleep. And that's only considered mediocre. 9 or 10 hours is really considered the championship level sleep. And it's not just about rest. It is obviously about rest, but it's also that is the time that allows their bodies to recover. When they're sleeping, the hard work that they're putting in practice, their muscles and things like that, they need time to recover, and that's the best recovery period for an athlete is when they're sleeping. So I know that can be a hard adjustment to make, for some of our kids. But again, if they want to take the next step and be really good or be even elite, that rest comes into play. Thorough stretching is another one. We're pretty good about obviously our stretching before practice because we do it together. At the end of practice, we don't typically stretch together because guys are finishing in a little bit different time. But they need to be sure that they're being thorough in their stretching. They don't want to rush through it at the end of practice. Because if they stretch properly, it's going to make them feel better for the next day. And it means they're probably going to have a better workout. So thorough stretching after practices and after races, because I know sometimes we race, we just want to get out of there. We're not always great about doing our stretches, so that's important as well. And the fifth thing I want to say is consistency in training and all of the above. And if you talk to a lot of people, they're going to talk about consistency is key to progressing and to improving. First of all, if you're consistently doing all the things I mentioned, water intake, eating clean and healthy, getting enough rest, thorough stretching, you're putting yourself in position to train well consistently. And training well consistently, when that occurs, that's where you really see your improvement. You can't just have one good practice a week or even two. To be honest, you can't afford to have a bad practice every week. I understand everyone's going to have a bad practice here or there, but again, if you're wanting to get to that next level, if you're really wanting to see improvement, really wanting to improve your times, you have to have long stretches of consistently good, high-level, quality training. So if you're having a bad practice a week, that means you're only training, maybe having good training 80% of the time. Well, if you want to get really good at something, 80% is not going to cut it. So athletes have to understand that one or two good practices a week does not equate to a good race on Saturday. You have to have consistently good long stretches of training. So you do that by keeping yourself as fresh as possible, keeping yourself as healthy as possible, and a lot of the things on those keys to improvements list will help an athlete do that. We just came off of a pretty tough stretch of training. The last 4 weeks have been pretty hard. We've been consistently increasing our mileage. Last week we got in the upper 40s for our top guys, and this week we were still in the upper 40s for our top guys, and that's as high as I think that's the most mileage I've had here since we've coached. Typically we've come to peaked out around 40, 42 miles, and we've gotten up to 46, 48, 49 miles the last couple weeks. I say that because that's important to understand that when we're coming off this tough training period, because we trained really hard this week, doesn't mean you see the results today or on the Saturday race. Sometimes, usually what you do in practice lags a little bit from what you see in a race. So that's the first thing. The second thing is understanding that because we have been coming off this tough training period, athletes' legs are probably a little bit heavy. They're probably a little bit tired. Even if they ran well, even if they PR'd, the goal is right now that their legs are still a little bit heavy. Come October, we start decreasing their mileage. Their legs are fresher. Their legs feel better. Their bodies feel better. And the idea is hopefully they run faster times. Now, again, there's a lot of other factors that play into that. The competition you're competing against, the weather, the type of course that you're on. So it's not always a given that you're going to run a PR, but in general, the idea is that as we approach the end of the season, we reduce our mileage, making our athletes feel better, feel fresher, and that's going to allow them to see improved times or improved performances, or at the very minimal, more consistent performances, which is another indicator we want to see with improvement. So anything that as a parent or guardian you can do to help the athlete understand that they have to be consistent in doing those keys to improvement, and they have to have consistent training, because you're not going to see the times you want if you're not running and training consistently. That also means on days off. If it's a day off that I've assigned running, they need to do it. That factors into their weekly mileage. Now I'm rarely, if ever, assign running on a Sunday following a race. But for example, on fall break, we only have practice 2 days that week. The rest of the time, it is up to them to run on their own, and I'll tell them what to do. But if they don't do it, then they're not putting in the work that's necessary for them to continue to improve and reach the next level. So that is where parents can certainly help me by holding your kids accountable on their training on their own and all these other things that's going to help them improve. So to look at the upcoming schedule, this is a busy week. It's actually a week that we don't get to train much. 3 races in a week is certainly not ideal, but we wanted to go to Masterson Station because that's where the region's going to be. It could be a different course. It was last year. We ran here in the regular season, then we came back for the region, and it wasn't the same course, but I still think it was a valuable opportunity to run there because some of the course is going to be the same. There's only so many ways they can run this race. Now, they do have some options, but the bottom line is I thought it was important our kids get familiar with the region site. So anyway, we ran today at Masterson. Wednesday, we had the Buffalo Trace Conference Championship at Mason County. That will be a small meet. It will be elementary, middle, and high school, starting at 5:30, I believe, with elementary. It'll be on a rolling schedule, and they say they're going to run boys and girls together in all the races. So there'll still be separate awards for boys and girls, but they will run them together because it's getting dark earlier and we have to finish before the sun goes down. So this Wednesday, Buffalo Trace Conference. Saturday next week, October 1st, really big race at Tom Sawyer State Park, the Louisville Cross Country Classic. It should be a good day for us. We're going to go down a little early, actually. They have college races there in the morning. These are big time. Everything from NAIA will be there, your lower level colleges, to Division I colleges. Kentucky, Louisville, just to name a few. Probably a lot of SEC schools, things like that. So there are several levels of races at the college level. I think it's based on their time, but we should get there around 10:15, and we'll see a couple of the different levels of college races, which I think will be a good opportunity for the kids. And because the college races are in the morning, that's actually an afternoon race, so we will race afternoon next week. And last year I went back and looked. It was a really big race, and it usually is, even for the high school. We've been in some pretty big races this year. Bourbon County had a lot of runners. Mason County had a lot of runners. Today had a lot of runners, and anywhere from 150 to a little over 200 runners in those races. Last year at the Louisville Classic, the boys race had 340 runners. So, that is a packed field, and it will be very competitive. I'm sure all of your top runners in the state will probably be running this next weekend at Louisville Classic. So it'll be a really big race, for our kids. We'll wrap up the regular season on October 8th at GRC. Likens Park is a course that some of our kids like that have ran there before. It's a good course to watch a race. It's coach friendly, it's spectator friendly. Not the easiest course, but overall not a bad course. So going to end our regular season there. There will be one additional race that I've told our athletes they have the option to compete in if they want to. October 14th is the Meet of Champions at Bourbon County. Bourbon County is the course in Paris where the state championship will be. So if we make the state meet, we'll be running there. We've already ran there once this year. But I told our kids if they want to go, I will take them. So I need to know that by October 5th, whether or not to register them. And again, that's actually first time they're going to do that on a Friday night. So that will be a Friday night or Friday evening race, not really a night race because I think it starts at 5 or 5:30. But anyway, that is an optional race. High schoolers don't have to do it. That is technically one of their days off for fall break because it isn't on fall break. But if they want to run, they just need to let me know so I can register them, and we'll take them down there for that. Our regional meet is scheduled on October 22nd. That's back at Masterson Station Park. It's an afternoon race because there are 2 other regions running there that morning. There's I think a 2A region and a 3A region before us. So we are the third meet of the day. Our boys are scheduled for 3 o'clock and girls at 3:45. And then if we make it back to the state meet, that is on October 29th. Boys run at 10 a.m. at Bourbon County and the girls at 11. So that kind of runs down the rest of the season. Looking forward here to ramp up, into October where we get into our championship month and, see what can happen. But thank everyone for tuning in to listen to a little update on our cross-country season. And we hope to see everyone out this week at Mason County. Take care.